Chandu, do you know what's interesting? We've spent the last decade making networks smarter, faster, and more distributed. But somehow operating these networks feels harder than ever.
I completely agree, Mina. What's ironic is that most enterprises have invested heavily in their best of breed technologies. The infrastructure itself is often excellent, but when you look at the operational side of it, and you see a completely different story.
Exactly. Most enterprise networks are a reflection of business growth rather than architectural integrity. A company acquires another company, different regions standardize on different vendors, cloud teams make independent decisions. Before you know it, you're running SD-WAN from one vendor, Wi Fi from another, switching stack from another, and cloud networking from three different vendors.
And every one of those platforms comes with its own controller, its own telemetry, its own APIs, its own dashboards, and its own troubleshooting workflows.
And that's where things start to break down. Think about a simple help desk ticket. A user says, I can't connect to Wi Fi, or something like my application is slow. On paper, these sound like simple questions. But for a network administrator, that triggers a treasure hunt across dozen systems.
Have seen that firsthand. The first few minutes aren't even troubleshooting. They spent figuring out which tool might contain the answer. Then you start opening tabs for each of these vendors. For example, the wireless controllers, switching management, SD-WAN dashboards, your firewall logs, cloud portals, and whatnot, even the monitoring platforms. And suddenly you have got 15 browser tabs open before you have even identified the problem.
Isn't that why we joke about the dashboard hell? Honestly, it's not really a joke. It is a genuine operational challenge. The administrator ends up acting as a correlation engine. They are manually stitching together information that already exists, but only in a dozen fragmented systems.
And that's a key insight. The problem isn't that enterprise lack data. They are drowning in data. The problem is that the data is fragmented across operational silos.
Which is what made us go back to the drawing board and ask a simple question, right, Chandu? What if the industry has spent years optimizing infrastructure but hasn't really optimized operations? What if the next big innovation isn't another dashboard?
Oh, that's a dangerous statement for networking vendors, Mina, because everyone seems to believe the answer to complexity is another dashboard.
Exactly. And yet, every dashboard is trying to solve a problem only in its own domain. Nobody is solving the operator's problem. The operator doesn't care whether the issue originated in Wi Fi or switching or SD-WAN or the cloud. All that they care about is answering a simple question. Why isn't my user unable to connect to applications?
That's where we started discussing what a vendor-agnostic operational model could look like. Imagine an administrator asking, why are users in my Santa Clara office unable to connect to a corporate Wi-Fi? And instead of opening 10 dashboards, the system itself figures it out.
And the platform discovers the relevant infrastructure, understands which vendors are involved, correlates telemetry across LAN, WAN, and applications, identifies the likely failure domain, and even provides guided recommendations. With this, the complexity doesn't disappear from the network, but it disappears from the operator's workflow.
That's the important distinction. We are not simplifying the network. Networks will continue becoming more complex because there will be more cloud infrastructures, more edge devices, more AI applications, and more vendors in this. The question is how we make that complexity invisible to the people operating it.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to go by these three principles. Vendor agnostic visibility, due to the heterogeneous nature of networks today, natural language operations, and AI driven correlation across infrastructure domains. These three together fundamentally will change how networks operate.
And honestly, I think that's where the industry is heading. The winners won't necessarily be the vendors with the most features or the most dashboards.
They'll be the platforms that make complexity disappear. The simpler the operations are, the better the network management is. And the platforms that will allow operators to focus on outcomes rather than infrastructure plumbing. That's the vision we have been exploring, right, Chandu?
I, I like that. No another dashboard, an operational intelligence layer.
Exactly, because nobody, really nobody in the world wakes up in the morning asking for more dashboards. They just want their users' problems solved.